I'm Frank Raijsberman. I'm the Director General of the Global Green Growth Institute, GGGI. So GGGI is an international organization, and we are an intergovernmental organization. That means that our members are governments. We were set up by an international treaty initiated by the government of Korea, and in 2012 18 countries signed our treaty, and now new members come because they join our treaty. That's a very formal process. What we do is we support our members to transition to a green economic development model. And what that means is that we would like these countries to have policies that are more environmentally sustainable and more socially inclusive. And really what it means is we help countries fight climate change, but also pollution like plastic pollution and so on. Every year we have lots of goals and plans. We are growing very fast. 2 years ago we were about $60 million, last year $80 million. Coming year our budget is about $100 million. We had about 750 people this year, and our target is to bring in the coming year about $2 billion of green and climate finance to green projects, green investment projects, and other ways to fight climate change. And then we figured that will bring a sharp reduction on those projects in greenhouse gas emissions, but it will also bring green jobs and a number of other linked goals. So our key targets are to grow about 30%, the whole organization, hire a lot more people, and with that support about 50 countries to get closer to net zero or carbon neutral economic development. Yes, quite a few. Last year we had a few very interesting projects. One of them is that for the government of Ecuador we supported the largest debt for nature swap in the world. That meant we helped the government of Ecuador issue a blue bond, which brings money to improve the conservation of the Galapagos Marine Park. And the government of Ecuador bought back a very large amount, $1.6 billion worth of outstanding debt. So the key impact for the government of Ecuador was that it reduced their foreign exchange debt by $1 billion, and about $400 million went to marine conservation. We're very proud of that because it was a very good opportunity for countries that have a very high level of debt, meaning they can't take on new loans, to find still money to work on environment and climate change issues. So ODA is official development assistance, and traditional ODA goes to build schools, build hospitals, do things like that. Part of that goes to green purposes, and the OECD, the Organization for Economic Development in Paris, they categorize all the ODA, and all the ODA that goes to green purposes, environment or climate or biodiversity, is labeled by them. And a few years ago I analyzed Korea's Green ODA and saw that only about 9% or so of Korea's ODA was green. So I wrote op-eds in Korean newspapers, I had discussions with Korean decision makers, and actually then Korea's development decision makers decided, yes, Korea should increase its green ODA. And KOICA, for instance, set a goal that by 2025 they would like to have at least 20% of KOICA's ODA be green. And I think the government has targeted that it wants to Korea's ODA to be as green as that of other ODA providing countries. Yes, AI is a very new topic, right? Yes. Of course we use AI in our day-to-day work like you do, and particularly because we work in so many countries. Until not that long ago, translation was a very big problem, right? It costs a lot of money. Organizations like the United Nations spend a very large part of their budget for translators. And indeed, our country sometimes complained that all our documents were in English or our website was only in English. Right now, of course, like everybody else, we use AI for automatic translation. So now if you do a web page, you can easily translate it. You know, if I go to a Korean website, I can easily read it in English. So that is probably the most widespread routine use of AI that we have. But this year we also do a pilot project to see how we could more deliberately use both big data and AI for our work. So yes, we are users of AI, and we may come up with more advanced use of that as well. Like everybody else, we're all trying to figure out how AI is going to make our lives better. So our understanding of climate change has improved a lot over the last, well, I work on climate change for maybe 40 years now, almost my whole career. And during that time, I have seen the models for climate change become more and more precise. Initially, we could only see how much the whole world temperature was increasing. We did not have any models where you could see how much the temperature would change in Korea, or how much the rainfall, or how much a drought would change. Those models have become better, and AI is a key part of that. It means we use AI, not we personally, but the people who use those big models. I used to work at Google, and there we did a project with Google Earth to make all Google's data available to climate researchers, who could then use all these data for special climate models, and then use it on Google's infrastructure and use Google's AI. Google has been working on AI for a long time to make better climate modeling. For instance, to have a very precise analysis of how the trees are cut in the Amazon, almost down to individual trees. So our understanding of climate change, and particularly its impacts, has improved a lot through AI. So we were very excited when President Moon committed Korea to be carbon neutral by 2050. Almost all countries now have decided that they should be carbon neutral by 2050. That is in line with the goal to try and reduce climate change to 1.5 degrees. Only a few countries like China have said 2050 is too soon, we will be carbon neutral by 2060. But almost all those countries are struggling to achieve that, right? So the climate scientists have said to be carbon neutral by 2050, we should reduce emissions by 2030, very soon, by about 40%. And that 40% is very difficult. So Korean policymakers, when they passed the climate law in the National Assembly, they said the maximum they could think that Korea could achieve by 2030 was 32%. And then when the president said he wanted Korea to do 40%, the additional 8%, probably Korea has to get through collaboration with other countries by buying ITMOs, internationally transferred mitigation outcomes, on the carbon market. So one of the things that GGGI does is to build capacity, train, develop the understanding in our member countries of carbon markets, so that countries like Korea or Sweden or Norway can buy ITMOs from Indonesia or from Nepal or from countries that are willing to transfer their reductions to Korea. So countries are all struggling to meet the 40%, Korea included. But I hope that we can achieve it because it's really important.
Okay. Thank you.
So shall I tell you the secret then?